Sam Maguire, you little swine. Yeah, you just literally the other night, wasn't it? Yesterday evening, because we were calm before this. Let's just rewind a little bit further, Trev. The Van Dijk embargo comments have come out, and we'd all been, yeah, I'm calm. We'll see. Like it's even a chance I could run it down, and then we agree after the season. We were all quite calm. We were relaxed.
Well. Let's just last show. We did discuss the phraseology that Virgil used, where it was like, if anyone tells you that the deal is done, they're lying to your face. And it was quite extreme. And I think it was a certain red flag, Dave. It was a red flag. And if you're not reading the red flag into that language, why do you say that in that way? You don't, unless you're desperately trying to make a point. So, yeah, there was a level of calm, but definitely red flag planted.
Yeah, wasn't the reassurance in that line. That is a fair point we were looking for. And then we definitely didn't get the reassurance because this came out from Sam Maguire, didn't it, the other evening, that PSG are all in on Virgil van Dijk. Liverpool won't break the bank, as it says, to retain their club captain, but they do want him to stay. And as per the article, it did feel that the detail that Liverpool want him to stay on their terms. And the detail in the article with the offer, it's huge, isn't it? It's a big signing on fee. It's big wages, far more than we would offer after tax. A loyalty signing on fee, I think that they call it, and Sam mentions as well. Also, PSG, a Nike club. So that helps, Virgil be the face, a Nike athlete. So there's that. And I see people going, he won't go to that, that level and all those. And there's a few other bits to come, like you mentioned about Koeman. The little bit then you thought, remember that photo when he was in the tunnel with Campos and El Khalifi, the PSG bodies, weren't they? You all of a sudden thought, that doesn't quite sit nicely. Not that Virgil's doing anything wrong at all. Let's just be clear. He's in the last 6 months of his deal. He can speak to anyone he wants. So he's breaking nothing, and his agent are doing absolutely nothing wrong by doing this. It's the fact we've let it get to this stage that you have to bring into the mix. So that was a bit of a worry. Then, as you said, Ronald Koeman even just today says, when he was asked about his future, whether he signs with Liverpool or another big club, that's all good for me. We'll see what happens. And what I understand from Virgil is that he's still looking for the level he's at now. The thing about that comment is, and sometimes, you can read too much into it, but you can only deal with what you've got. You started to think, didn't you, Trev, like, yeah, because we've heard about the Saudi, and we've heard that dismissed because he's not ready for that. He's talked about wanting to stay playing for Holland a few years at the top, so that makes sense. But then you look at where PSG are now and how they're set up with a sort of a young, hungry team, and they're doing well in the Champions League. And you actually just started to think, you could see it in a way, couldn't you? Big money, maybe thinks I've done everything I can do at Liverpool. You can't just ignore that completely, as much as we want to dismiss it and we're all desperate for him to sign. That sort of played into your mind. And then the pièce de résistance, literally an hour ago or so, France declared war on England journalists, didn't they? Because as Julian Lorenz tweeted there is nothing between PSG and Virgil van Dijk. No talks, no negotiations, no 100 million signing on fee offer, anything like that. Nothing. That's not quite what Sam Maguire said, but you can tell what he's referring to there, and says, no, he just had a chat with those two, but there's no doubt about his future. So all of a sudden we're thinking like, Maguire, Lawrence, let's go. We're on between, like, who's right, who's wrong type of thing, which makes it interesting. The thing about this is we're probably not going to find out immediately, aren't we? It's going to take a month or two till something comes to the surface. As Virgil said, we'll know before the end of the season. So I suppose the only thing on this now, Trev, is it's not going. We're not hearing what we want to. And I understand why people are thinking, okay, Virgil saying this, Ronald Koeman saying this, I'm hearing this about PSG. You almost hope Julian Lorenz is right and there isn't anything in it. But the longer and longer it goes, you are start to thinking like, is it some part of something more, which I know we'll come on to at the same time later. But I don't think anyone's sitting quite as comfortable considering what were we told weeks ago. And I mean weeks ago, we had numerous journalists telling us like, all the noises we're hearing are Salah, Van Dijk expected to re-sign, Trent probably going. And now here we are today with all this.
So two things that jump out at me. Like I said, the phrasing of the Koeman stuff. It was the last line, the one about, from what I understand it from Virgil, that basically he wants to stay at the level that he's at now. Right. So the conversation has gone to some point with Koeman, between him and Virgil, that the reality of movement away from Liverpool, but to stay at a high level club, that's occurred apparently.
Yeah.
If we're to take Koeman on his word, the reality of a potential move has been broached in the conversation between two of them. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. That's way too close. The idea that we are in this situation, I can't get my head around it. This is probably not the part of the show where we start talking about who or what is responsible for why we are where we are, and where people may be losing the plot a little bit with who they're blaming. But it's, regardless of how we got here, we should not be here, and it's very, very frustrating. That's one thing. The second thing with it as well is I did hear it spun that the chat between Virgil and the two lads in the tunnel after the PSG game was actually Armand saying, kind of like I was a bit out of order with the thing I said when you were having your little conniption fit the last time there. So, just broaching the subject. Which it sounded about right to me, because he does seem like a decent kind of a dude, and I can see him doing that. So look, it is very much up in the air. We can't jump anywhere into panic station. But the phrasing of that thing from Koeman has me worried that it's a real thing. And the fact that we are here, Dave, is frustrating as all hell. Now, before we go to Konate, just a little mention of the fact that we saw, didn't we, Grav and Verge arriving into the Dutch camp as well. Now, people are going to want to make a story up about this, but we saw their fullback. What's the lad's name? Remind me again.
Frimpong.
Frimpong doing his best Scouse accent to greet Grav, and big laughing heads on everybody, and obviously 2 and 2 together, and that makes 17. And he's definitely going to sign for us because he was mentioned 1 point with us, as every good player always is. So that's just by the by. We're not ignoring it, but it's also not a story, I think. Sorry, man, you want to say something there?
No, I agree, because I think people have all of a sudden gone, you've seen it. And I don't know whether it's tongue in cheek, like that's Trent's replacement. Like they could just be having a joke, like, let's not, we've got enough to worry about, like, without putting like who's the right back replacement just now on the list.
We're not even talking about Trent on this show because there's a slow, quiet, dark assumption that that's going to happen. And we're just going to ignore the elephant in the room over there, the large pachyderm looming in the corner. Just ignore it. I can't deal with that. We've got enough on our plate here with the Virgil van Dijk story. Worse again, it's being linked to his fellow Colossus at centre-half, Konate, and it's the same club. And there's been PSG and Konate links for a long time, It feels almost as if, I think he said different things in the past, which again seemed vaguely favourable to PSG and Konate. What do we know about this one?
Yeah, it's kind of come out, and PSG like Konate, Real Madrid like Konate has come out as well at the same time. This is a player that has 2 years left to go, and we want to get that deal renewed. We know Konate said it himself that Liverpool have made him an offer, but quite rightly, and I say this in the terms of sometimes you've got to take your Liverpool hat off a little bit. If you were Konate's agent, you would be waiting to see, no, we need to see what happens. Because if they're going to stay, number one, we need to see what they get, because that will tailor what we'll accept a little bit and where we sit in the rankings. Because if he's getting, I'm making up numbers here for people, jump on me for this, but if Virgil's getting, say, 300 grand and we're offering Konate 150, his agent's going to know he's not half, let's be clear. So it's going to be a barometer, a marker, isn't it? So that's the first thing. The second thing is, if Van Dijk, God forbid, was to go, Konate's agent, if he's going to stay, will probably be saying, well, my client's your main centre-half now, so you're going to reward him accordingly then, aren't you, to even make an offer and show that recognition in the first place. However, from digging around, Trev, as we do, and sort of trying to get as much info as we can, all our info is, and we kind of alluded to this on the last one, Konate's future may well be linked a little bit to Virgil van Dijk. That the info is, if Virgil is disappearing, and by the way, if Virgil does disappear to PSG, how attractive does that make it for Paris boy Konate? A club that wants him. He's almost, you could call him his mentor. I think that's a fair shout, couldn't you, as well? So that plays a part. So for me, not only if Virgil leaves, is it an absolute disaster, I think in terms of the knock-on and what it could mean for someone like Konate, you verge into cataclysmic event, don't you, realistically, in that sense as well. And listen, I know people will be saying, listen, there's war, there's famine, there's pest, all that, and I get it. We're talking, tongue-in-cheek a little bit. But, yeah, the Virgil decision could have a real knock-on for our info to Ibu and what he decides to do.
Yeah, look, if you've tuned into a transfer speculation show and you're going to get sort of making false equivalencies about how you should be suitably outraged about more serious things, you're probably doing life wrong. So, we'll see you again. Thanks for tuning in. But I will say this, it's not just over yet. And we're building up to a topic that none of us wants to be discussing, but it's a fascinating topic. But before we get there, we have to talk about Diaz and we have to talk about Bradley's contract. And I hope people recognize that we are not talking about Mo Salah because there is nothing new there yet, except the very dispiriting things that Mo has had to say about how he's not feeling the love and how it's likely that he's off. So that is where it is. We've got nothing new to be ruffling the feathers with there, but we also can't ignore the fact that that hasn't changed for the better either. But let's talk Diaz and let's talk Conor Bradley's contract.
Yes, it kind of links a little bit because there was almost an expectation that Luis Diaz and Liverpool would open contract talks, or they'd still be discussing it, as the season started, because 28, 2 years left to go in the summer. Obviously, there was a willingness to maybe, if a suitable offer came last summer, make that move, but it didn't, it didn't materialize. And here we are. I mean, the big two things in this so far for Luis Diaz are, as Fabrizio Romano said the other day, there is a concrete possibility Luis Diaz could leave this summer. Pipe Sierra, who's well known, the Colombian journalist who first broke this, is clearly connected with the Diaz camp, had tweeted not that long ago as well that, Luis Diaz is talking and looking to get a contract renewal offer from Liverpool, but we'll look at the options. Barcelona get mentioned as well at the same time. And I think this is a real possibility. And even at the weekend, I saw him sort of trading, and I remember what was in big gags at Wembley, Trev. This was funny. He was trading. I thought, I wonder what's going to happen with Diaz. And we were just looking around because we were in a nice spot in Wembley. And lo and behold, God is my witness, the next tier up was Papa Diaz, like doing a samba dance to one of the tunes over the Wembley tannoy, like Papa Diaz does, types of things. And all Lotson thought is, he's probably off in the summer to a warmer climate, isn't he? In all honesty, for Papa Diaz, maybe more than anything. But yes, so that's just an aside. So there's real question marks over Luis Diaz this summer. And then this one is an interesting one. And in terms of the worry, anyone's concerns, priorities and everything, it is well down the list for Liverpool right now because he's got time left on his contract, just to be clear. But for those who are on YouTube, you hopefully see that tweet on the screen from March the 3rd. Think how far back that is now that Liverpool are in talks with Conor Bradley over a new contract, keen to reward his progress. And it made sense, didn't it, Trev? Because the elephant in the room, the natural move from West Derby of someone to Real Madrid is expected to happen. So you thought, of course, that would make all the logical sense in the world. The only update recently that we've got on this is that even Bradley and his team are like, let's just slow down a little bit and just see the offer, because if Trent does leave, you're saying to us, you're my starting, Conor Bradley's the starting right back. So he's going to want, as his agents, are going to want to be rewarded accordingly, aren't they? If you're Conor Bradley's agent, Trev, if you've got any sense, you're saying, no, we need to wait to see if Trent does go, because then we're in a strong bargaining position, aren't we, for the deal we're going to get. Let's not sign up early, give Liverpool sort of the comfort of doing everything. Like, to get the best deal, you wait. And just to be clear, people, as I'm saying this, Conor Bradley is a Liverpool fan. Conor Bradley wants to stay at Liverpool, but it is a smart move by his agent to just wait and see what happens. I think we all know what will happen with Trent, and then progress it from there. And also, and I see people tweet about Bradley's injury record. That will come into the mix. So if he does an offer right now, it might just have that factored in, that, you need to prove yourself. And so we need to build that in accordingly. But if Trent goes, all of a sudden, that bargaining position lifts, doesn't it?
I'm fairly sure Trent's a Liverpool fan as well.
Yeah.
Just for the record. We are going to talk about Chelsea, and we're going to talk about United, and we're going to talk about Saudi before we finish up, just so people know that those are the topics that are coming. But what's really sort of weighing on me as a fan at the moment is that so many of these things are happening at once, and you can't help but ask yourself a question, because we are in the dark so much. And listen, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I think we'd all like to know where we stand in terms of our best players and whether they're going to keep playing for the club or not. But there are certain business realities that, like, I find stunningly boring. And I can even see the conversation going off there in a few directions about whether it's worth paying lads certain wages or what they'll be worth or whatever. Yeah. It's the kind of topic I understand people want to talk about. It's just doesn't grab me. What grabs me is, like I said earlier on, I want to have as many of our footballers that we love playing well for the club and achieving things. And it looks like we could be looking at the reality of a very big shuffle. In fact, we could be looking at a Klaus Schwab style great reset. It is wild. Let's just talk about it. Across the front line, Mo Salah has not got his contract yet. Darwin Núñez was already halfway out the door to Saudi Arabia. If it wasn't for stuff in his personal life, we're led to believe. Diogo Jota is being linked with Wolves very heavily at the moment, and he will start to lose value for us if we don't move him soon with his contract situation. Luis Diaz seemingly has one foot out the door at the nearest opportunity to get Papa Diaz dancing in the heat. That's the whole front line. Fede Chiesa is not trusted. Harvey Elliott doesn't seem to be trusted. The midfield, you'd like to think that have just arrived in the last while, all four of those guys will stay. But will Endo? Who knows? The back line, we've just talked about it. Van Dijk, Konate, Trent. We're already saying the one thing, if you take all of those stories out of it, the one thing everyone would have said is, well, we need a left back. Fucking hell, okay, right? So this is one of the two left backs is going to go as well, right? Dude, that's the entire team. That is a huge, huge shakeup. And you may think, well, that's not realistic. But is there not a part of you that fears, like I do, that there's some galaxy brain strategic approach in the background about, let's get this thing over the line just by the skin of our teeth, and then we're just going to strip it back and do it the way we want to do it with the new crew that we have in situ? Because it does feel like there's the possibility for that wildly dramatic reset. Does that seem fanciful to you, or do you think it makes sense?
It's one of those theories, and it's right to call it theory. And for those that can't see it, if you're on YouTube, you'll see on the screen, we've called this segment Hard Reset. That theory now comes onto the table, doesn't it? With the talk of Van Dijk possibly going, Trent going, Salah. And there is a part, and you're right, it doesn't excite us about sort of too much of finance, but you do wonder if there's a the bods that be are looking and saying, well, we can clear about 1.5 million or so off the wage bill here, for a 33-year-old centre-back, a 33-year-old attacker. And okay, we don't want this kid to go, but if he's going to go, so be it. And sort of do a hard reset. And you could easily ignore that and say, no, they've offered contracts. But as everyone seems to understand, Liverpool have offered contracts on their terms. Well, we keep hearing that word. They're nowhere near a compromise, are we? Or people are going to have to compromise. And it doesn't seem to be getting any closer. Meanwhile, like countdown, that clock is ticking down towards the end of the season all the time. So it becomes tougher and tougher, you'd fancy, to agree deals. And at the same time, we're hearing that, and naturally, other big clubs in the world are courting these players and saying, if you want to play for us, we will drive a truck full of money to your house. It's understandable, isn't it, at the same time? Because all these three players are world class. They're elite players. There's no two ways about it. So that comes into your mix. You do just wonder, though, like you said, with the return of Michael Edwards and even the way things are set up, like Edwards dealing with sales right now, Ward dealing with the contracts, Hughes doing the sort of schmoozing agents, lining up incomings, whether if everything's sat down and all the stuff we've heard about the wage bill, that comes into the factor as well, just wanting to strip that right down. Also, even Trev, you think about Arne Slot's history at Feyenoord. This is a head coach that's used to big churn each season, isn't he? That's always been their model. He's used to having sort of 7 or 8 going. And I can see people saying like a title winning team doesn't need upheaval. Let's just be clear on what me and Trevor said, people. We want these boys to stay. I think people just feel missing that in the comments. But we're talking about potential of, is there, validity to this hard reset theory? My worry is from all the facts we're seeing now, what a couple of months ago we would have gone, nah, not from what we're hearing. Time's ticking, and you are just starting to think like, hold on. Yeah, it's not something that sits nicely. And I've seen loads of people, even on Discord, have got different theories on this. But to me, if Virgil van Dijk leaves Liverpool and doesn't do a renewal, and Mo Salah departs as well, Trent, we kind of made our peace with. But if both those players go, I have no idea what's going on personally behind the scenes. I don't really care whether you want to call it a hard reset, smart business, any of that nonsense. For me, we just weakened our squad massively.
Yeah, look, there are loads of people who will try to justify the extreme oddballs who are FSG fans first, Liverpool fans second. That's just one of the weirdest stances I can imagine you could adapt. But most level-headed people, and I think, people that we have in our general audience will be of the same opinion as us. Like, no one wants to see these guys go, especially not the two best players in their positions in the world right now. And let's get this straight. PSG are looking at Virgil van Dijk and thinking, this dude is transformative for us. I'm not saying Marquinhos and Pacho aren't good. I'm just saying Virgil's better, right? They're looking at someone like Mo Salah perhaps and thinking that guy could be transformative for us, even though they've got one of the best attacks I've ever seen. Yeah. Real Madrid might be thinking that. Who knows? We can't underestimate how attractive these players are to other clubs. And the fact that the contracts aren't nailed down, the fact that so many others are, up for grabs and have already had strong links away, it's something we have to consider. And I know at least one person there in the comments was saying, well, maybe that was the plan all along, and that we're just sort of way further on than people had expected or hoped, and Arne's overachieving with what he's done in the league. I mean, that again is possible, and it's the part of my brain that goes there is the part that it thinks, well, they're going to back themselves to do something quite dramatic here, like they did first time round, right? So look, it's got to be something we discuss. We're going to keep an eye on it, but like you, my default, my return to base setting is, please don't let Mo Salah leave. Please don't let Virgil van Dijk leave. Let's get those guys much more medals in a red shirt.